What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, this is, big old one. This one, we managed to get Jeff from Evolve Skateboards for a full interview. We're going to do this for about 45 minutes. This will be just to know more about the journey of Jeff through the journey of e-skate, how he got into it. But we're going to go a bit more kind of like involved in that. So we're going to see how things go. But we'll bring Jeff in, let him say hi, and we'll get ourselves started on this interview. So let's get ourselves going.
Tommy,
what's up, man? Thank you so much for joining this. I'm great, man. Honestly, I'm really great. I'm really grateful that
it's good to see you, mate.
Yeah, man, that's great. Especially with
firstly, I've got to say that countdown that you just had was how retro.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I don't know. It's I'm going to tweak it a little bit. Yeah.
No, it's cool. It's like true 80s vibe.
Yeah,
from my era, by the way. I'm pretty old.
But yeah, I want to say thank you so much for coming on, man. Like, honestly, it's a real honor. Like, it's a mad thing through journey how things go, and like having the opportunity to sit down and just chat is a real pleasure. So thank you so much for.
Mate, no worries. I'm stoked to be here, mate. And I haven't seen you for a while, and it's always good to talk to you.
Yeah, man, that's always good, man. So it'll be cool just to catch up. See, you guys have been busy working on projects. So, we'll talk about the journey with Evolve, things that you can or cannot talk about. We'll keep it formal. But yeah, man, so it's all well and good. So, for any reason that someone who doesn't follow my skate channel, and for some reason who doesn't know who Evolve are, do you want to just get a bit of a blurb about, your engagement, your involvement in the phenomenon of e-skating?
Yeah, okay, no problems. We've been delving in e-skate since probably 2008. It's been a long time. It's been a long journey, mate. Like, we didn't officially come out as Evolve to about sort of 2010. And yeah, back then, it was very different. E-skate really wasn't a thing back then. And look, there were a couple of players back then. Altered e-skate was one of them. E-glide was the other. Metro board was also around then. And then we came along sort of after that. But the boards back then, they were tanks. They were. It was all about the trucks were. They're very different. The decks were. It wasn't really about like longboarding or
stuff like that. Yeah.
No. It was. They were more toy-like, and they were just big lead acid batteries. And they were sort of always 36 volt, big tank-like brick motors, and the wheels. It was not about urethane. It wasn't a thing back then, and so anyway. That's where we started. So
I feel like the old school days of e-skate was all humbling. It was like, pioneers doing just for the sake of it, the stoke of just being able to ride along without pushing in that concept. And I feel like people in this generation of e-skate forget the grassroots of where we've come from at that time and the grind of, the innovation and stuff like that along the way.
And I remember, for me, what we were trying to achieve with our first production board was always about trying to keep it as light as possible and as small as possible, and focusing on the skateboard side of the board. And that was always the forefront of what we were trying to achieve, is making sure that the ride part of the product was just quality. It was always about the carve and proper longboard materials, and that was sort of our competitive advantage when we first came to market, because back then the boards that were on the market didn't have that. They never used ABEC 11 wheels, and they were tanks. That's all I remember is like, I just wanted to make sure that what we were doing was light, and that's where we started. It was all about carving and small and light. And now look at where things have come. It's gone from small and light, especially over the first few years of e-skate. Oh, geez, you bringing this up?
Yeah, man, I'm doing everything here. I've got all the homework here.
This is really cool. I appreciate you showing this. Like, it just shows how old school. This was when Evolve first started. Me showing off our first board.
I don't think I've seen another board since this date which has that pintail design nowadays. Like no one does that.
No. I just love that retro look and yeah. So yeah, this is me doing marketing. All right. So we're on our dodgy bench in our rental. We started in this was a garage where we started, double garage. This was inside our living room, by the way, but out the back is where we used to make all the boards. And yeah, I love it. Like, and you can see it up to really go back then to the double kingpin style. And those wheels, just so you know, we never launched with those wheels. They were shit. Yes. Yep. Okay, that's another piece of history you got there. Love the design, but at the end of the day,
this was like the thing is that's a standard now, isn't it? Really, the core kind of thing nowadays. So that kind of early days, it kind of creates that kind of like it's a bit of the Kegel design now with hubs and stuff like that. That is a standard nowadays.
So right at this time, just another piece of history for you. Where we started was we all the drive gears never were detachable. They were all back then, they were part of the mold. So if you ever you had to like change your wheel or drive gear, whatever, you had to change the whole unit. So I ended up hooking up with an engineer. This was 2008, 2009, and we designed the first drive gear that had the male and female parts, so the insert. And that was our claim to fame versus what was out there with all the Altered and E-Glide, because they had all those big wheels and all the China boards were like that. And that allowed us to use the Sector 9 wheels, the Buston wheels. And then we found ABEC 11. And the ABEC wheels were really expensive at the time. We couldn't distribute them, really hard to get. I was only going to like skate shops and trying to order like 5 to 10 at a time, and we didn't have a business model. And so went to China and ended up ordering like 200 of these wheels, 100 of the green, 100 of the blue, in that color, in that shape, and got them. And the urethane was just horrendous. Like instantly you can feel it. Like anyone you know who's right into the carbon and quality wheels, it's like drinking a beautiful bottle of wine, and you know the difference straight away underfoot. And so we never launched with them. Do you know what I did with those wheels? I ended up giving them away as like promotional. Buy a board, get free set of wheels, and then it was those wheels.
Yeah, recycling. Make sure it gets
bit extra there, man.
The other thing as well, actually, I want to say as well, because you used to, there was a concept of wheels actually, just while you talk about it, there was like a clear with like an orange core wheel at some point as well, especially in the early days. That was concept as well.
I'll tell you about that wheel. So that had the same core as Sector 9 wheels, so the hub, and so we had a special gear that it was like a star sort of shape, and you used to slot right in. And I bought those wheels. It was a house mold from AN over in US, and that was one of our first times doing business with these guys, making our own wheels with some really nice clear urethane and beautiful soft underfoot. And I've always been about like, as soft as possible, as grippy as possible, and it's we all know as soon as you jump on those ABEC 11 wheels, that like those guys at AN, they make ABEC wheels. They just got the formula just right, and so then they started supplying us, but they were too small. That was one thing with just got a little bit too small, so that the flange on the truck used to scrape a little bit. That was one of the sort of negative feedbacks, but they were cool.
That's cool, man.
Can I ask you, when did you start e-skating?
So for me, I started with the GTX. That was my first board. So I saw
that was your first ever
Yeah, it was my first ever board. What was it? I was watching a video from Unbox Therapy of the Carbon GT2.
Oh, yes.
And I have to be able to be honest. I watched it and I thought, oh, it's so cool because I was working in London and I've always done extreme sports, weird stuff. And I thought, oh, what a better way of getting around town, it's great. And then I saw a price of it and I was like, am I actually going to use this thing, And it took me, I wasted a year not getting one. And then when I saw that absolutely beautiful trailer for the GTX, which I think is probably one of the best ones you've ever done, with that kind of hydraulic press one, that was so good. I mean, the animation of the grip toe, it was so clear.
Yeah, and there was a robot. It sort of went up and around it, and
I was like, that
tips.
was it. Me,
remember that comment.
It was kind of like organic, kind of like, I don't know, mechanical stuff. I don't know. I think, like I said, everyone we're all experimenting with different demographics all the time, so it's always interesting to see that. But yeah, now my GTX, and then I haven't really stepped off a board since. Really, that's pretty much me. But I was going to ask as well, with obviously the foundation of yourself with these, the e-skate, the concepts, I feel like you've always been involved in like extreme sport, and I feel like one thing I've been preaching a lot recently is the kind of butterfly effect, where if it wasn't for your surf accident, then you wouldn't have been looking at the next thing of looking at e-skate with that recovery stuff, which means that then looking into building the product and then making things more, and then obviously that has gone into a wide demographic. So that one small tumble has reached into hundreds of thousands of different individual experiences. Maybe people not even involved as a customer, but like the exposure and the getting more awareness in the sport through that one incident. It's a bit of a mad thing to do. So before the e-skate, was it a wider? Because I can see I got some other stuff as well. You've always been involved in kind of extreme sport kind of activities before, obviously being involved with the role.
I have, yeah. Basically, I've just been action all my life. I'm a big cricket fan. That's through all my growing up. I've played cricket all my life, and I think when I find a passion, I certainly throw myself 100% into it. And while I was playing cricket, I also started surfing when I was about 13, 14, and yeah, I just love it. It's a really hard sport, like surfing. It's just so tough on the body, and it's quite challenging too. Like the conditions change all the time. And yeah, I mean, I've been surfing since I was young, but it was when I found snowboarding though that really changed everything for me. And that was probably when I was about 28, and at the time, I know I went with my mate Trav, and I know you've met Trav before. Him and I went. He had been snowboarding before, and then he was going, "Jeff, you got to try this thing. It's so fucking cool." And I'd been I've been skating all my life since I was a kid as well, and just the old Bones Brigade days. Had my Tony Hawk skateboard, and I had an old penny type skateboard, but it wasn't penny back then. Like it was the same shape. Penny came sort of in the 2000s. But yeah, that's where it all started for me. And then back when I was 28, I ended up finding snowboarding, and I knew the week before I was going on this trip, I bought and started using my Dogtown skateboard again. I ended up going out and buying this cool old school board, and I was just prepping myself for snowboarding. And then when I finally went, holy shit, like the fact that you can go minutes at a time down this mountain and never having to kick push, that's next level. And that's what I fell in love with, was that endless feeling of just the cut. And then I was like relating that to surfing. I was like, I wish I could surf for that long, and because I can't, you get up and wave, and it's only really quick. And this video here is kind of it's kind of crazy. So
it's heavily influenced. It shows the early days as well, because you are a snowboarder on an electric skateboard in this whole thing. In every concept, like this jacket is legendary. Like how long has this green jacket been going for as well?
I still have that green jacket, and I still wear it every time I go snowboarding, and it's great. It's like a shell. It's a session jacket. Yeah, but yeah, it was all snowboarding. Snowboarding just got me, and then I remember snowboard trip, fell in love with it, came back. Must have been 2 weeks later. I went surfing over at Stratty, and then I got back out of the water. I was drying, and I was in the car park, and then I saw this guy on a skateboard, and he was riding, but he wasn't kick pushing, and I saw that, and I was like, what? Like, what the fuck is that, man? And all I could think of is snowboarding, the endless wave. Now I can do this on land at any time of the day or night. So I just went home and started doing some research, and then in my search, I realized it wasn't in Australia, like it wasn't a thing, and literally there was only a couple of boards I found even over in America doing it, and so I thought I'd stumbled on an opportunity, and so I bought one, and I bought one off eBay, and it took probably 5 weeks to arrive. And I just remember when I first got it, opened the box up, and it was a tank. It was like the deck of the board was like a toy. It was like a toy skateboard with an electronic system on it. The wheels were 110 mil, and they weren't urethane, like plastic style. But anyway, long story short, I rode that board and I had so much fun with it. And so and as I was using it, I was like, when you use strip wheels and you ride on footpaths, and the noise it gets when you go over those expansion joints, it's like
yeah.
So on this board, it was like 10 times louder. So it had frustrated me, and all I could think of is, man, I need to put those longboard trucks and wheels I have at home on this board. And that's where it all started. And so I did up some templates, and I worked out, because it had like this big brushed motor. It was like, a size of a baked bean can, and maybe a bit bigger. And I just got the truck and I put it in front. All right, I know it needs to be here. How do I put it on this truck? And then I just got a bit of cardboard and sort of worked it out. And I built this sort of template, so dodge. And then I took this whole template down to this engineer on the Gold Coast here. And I said, man, can you just make me this bit of cardboard that's dodgily taped to this truck, turn it into a bit of metal and like weld it onto this truck. And then I need this gear to lock into this wheel somehow. And so I just presented it to him, and he goes, yeah, okay. And that's where it started. And as soon as I had these wheels and trucks on this, and then I took the same electric system off that board and placed it on this longboard. And instantly, I remember the first ride. It was so sick. It was just changed the game. And that's where it all started, man. Like, and I was hooked. Like, and you see it all the time now with e-skaters in our industry now, when they first find e-skate, and it's just like, their heads explode, and it is just non-stop. You just can't get enough. Like that passion when you first find it, it's so cool. It's really infectious. And that was for me. And then some of my mates saw it, and then I built them something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool, man. Like I said, I can't imagine how exciting those early days were, being like kind of revolutionising and making it, because there was concepts in the past, yes, but no one was making it as a standard going forward. So,
can I tell you another story? Sorry, just back to the really, really early days. Like, when I thought in Australia there was none here, and I thought I was like seriously onto something, and I contacted this company, Alibaba. And I was going to literally buy 20 boards from these guys, and I had a logo. It was called Electric Skateboards Australia, and it was just And I was.
It was like a round thing, wasn't it? I think back in the day, it was a stamp, wasn't it? I think
it was. No, it wasn't round. It was just so dodgy, man. It wasn't a brand, but that's where it all started. ESA, that's what we called it, and literally I was about to buy 20 boards, and then my mate rang me up and he goes, Jeff, got to check the Gold Coast News. Quick, turn it on. So I turn it on, and sure enough, the local news, they're doing this story on this other new brand here in Australia, and there were these two brothers, and they were like doing electric skateboards down at Narrowneck on the beach, and they did the news. Channel 9 Gold Coast News was there, and they're filming them. The guys are talking about, oh, we're going to revolutionize surfing, and we've got these new skateboards, and my heart freaking sank, man. Like, I was like, no way, it's the same board as what I was about to do. And these guys beat me to it, and they were called Fixed Skateboards. And yeah, like Gold Coast guys, we know them. And then us, and then when I saw that, I was like, man, what are we going to do? Like, I can't bring the same skateboard out as these guys. Like, it's just going to be no fun. It's be like a price war. So that's when I was already tinkering, and I'd already done the electric, with the trucks and the wheels, and I had that vision, but I was going to start first by these other off the shelf boards, and it turns out the best thing that ever happened. Like, we went full steam ahead, and it took us another sort of 15 months of tinkering, and they were already to the market, and then we came out with our version of an electric skateboard, which was more about longboarding rather than the big tanks. And so yeah, we used to compete all the time, thick and us. It was cool.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
Bit of history.
Yeah, man, I find it really interesting about kind of like heritage and where we are now. I think it's really important, the journey, because I think it defines us for the future, for sure. I was going to say as well, with obviously kind of like the creation of Evolve and moving along the times and literally evolving. So you kind of developed like the kind of early days, the community kind of basis of like bringing everyone together, doing the group rides, doing the events, and how are those times of kind of like being like the first kind of doing like the weekly podcast stuff, or not the weekly videos coming out, and seeing people being in other hands? Because I don't know, I couldn't imagine the mindset of being like, I think it was 50 original boards, and like being like, we're going to sell the house, we're going absolutely balls deep on this, we're going to go for it. Like, that is there's one or two moments in your life you make those decisions. Like, how do you find like doing that and then actually feel like going along the way it's working, we're getting infrastructure down, we're making a brand and an identity like that? How was that must have been a really terrifying time, but ultimately paid it off.
Yeah, no, look, good question, man. And I've had that question asked me a few times, but see, back then, at the time in my life, like I had a landscape business, and this is what I did before Evolve, and had a few guys that worked for us, and it was booming, man. I had it for about 7 years, and then the last couple of years, so 2006, 2007, 2008, things changed, and we started the GFC, man. That's what happened, and basically all the contract work that we used to have with all the commercial and builders started to get just started to dry up, and we had a mortgage, just had our first kid, had a car payment, and we were friggin' struggling, man. It was hard, and then that's when I found snowboarding, and this was in 2007, 2008, and then at the time, all around this time, I only made a couple of boards, and this is another interesting time in the moment here. I ended up, because we were using those Sector 9 race formula wheels, and Sector 9 were owned by Billabong at the time. They bought Billabong, and this is when Billabong were buying every brand. They were just going nuts. And Billabong are Gold Coast. They're based here on the Gold Coast. And I ended up ringing these guys and I just said, guys, can I get like 10 sets of wheels from you? Because I can't get them from the local skate shop, and they cost heaps. And I've got this skateboard, and it's electric. And so I just rung the headquarters, and then I spoke to the Sector 9 skateboard rep, and he was like, what do you got? And I was like, yeah, I've got this electric skateboard. And he goes, what, using Sector 9 wheels? I was like, yeah. He goes, can I see it? And I was like, okay. And he goes, yeah, come down to Billabong. And I was like, what, fuck? And that was huge, man. That was a huge moment. And so I went down, this dude, landscaper, totally clueless about this industry, surf, snow, skate industry. Went to this beautiful big building and met these guys, and they just frothed for this board. They were like, fuck, it's the best thing ever. And so we're out in the main car park of Billabong, and these guys are fanging up and down, and they just lost their shit. And then, of course, that influenced my mindset. I was like, wow, are we onto something here? Like, they were genuinely interested in purchasing this product, and but we didn't have a product then. It wasn't even a brand. We only had 4 parts. It was like a motor plate, a drive gear. The drive gear was probably the most important element for this whole basis of the design. And we only had 4 parts, and they wanted to license it from us and do like and use it on some of their other brands. And so I went through back and forward with Billabong for probably 12 months. And this was in 2008, 2009. And at the time, the landscaping was getting smaller and smaller. We ended up having to contact our bank and said, look, man, we can't even pay our mortgage. What are we going to do? And this all came at the same time when Billabong were interested in the product. They strung us along for 12 months, and they were saying, yep, we're going to do this. And then after 12 months, the guy ended up saying, look, sorry, we're not interested anymore, but we love the skateboards. And I'd done so much work to get it to a point where all I needed now is, I knew what I needed to turn it into our own thing. It was like, I needed a battery case, I needed our own deck, we could do it. And then when Billabong, I remember I was on a job in Pottsville, landscaping this house, and then the guy rang me and said, look, sorry, man, but I'm still really interested. And I was like, fuck this. My heart sank. Heart sank. And then I remember calling my wife, Fleur, and we just said, look, they said no. And then and I said, what do you reckon? And then she goes, let's fucking do it. And I was like, what? And then we'd already talked about if we were to do it. I knew how much money we needed to get it off the ground. It was all the tools and molds, and we had this mortgage. We were struggling paying it. And look, to be honest, man, the decision, it was really exciting because I was not liking the position I was in already. And I knew I had some money in the house, and I loved the romance idea of doing something new and this exciting new journey. I didn't even think of any risks, man. That was the thing. I was like, I'm sick of this stress. And so I ended up
remove these variables.
And Fleur was like, let's do it. And I was like, holy shit, we're going to do this? All right. And we just worked it out. And then I ended up going to the bank and saying, look, we're going to sell a house. Then they gave us 3 months. We didn't have to pay to sell the house. We had 3 months. It was the worst time to sell it because the market was down. So we ended up selling the house less than what we bought it for. So it's a bad fucking move. But we had 70 grand. We had 70K to play with, and that all went into the production. And you were talking about the surfing accident before. So this was like, it must have been a month later after we'd done this. That's when I had that surfing accident. I blew a massive disc in my neck, and for 6 months I was really weak down one side of my body there, and I ended up having prednisone. Then they hooked me up on all these steroids, and fuck, man, you know that movie like Limitless? Yeah, that's how I felt. Like it was like I was on these steroids, I was on a new path, and I didn't care about the landscaping. All I could think of was this new passion and e-skate, and I just went nuts. And it was just, I was going a million miles an hour, and I got so much shit done, and it was exciting. And it was the grassroots. I was just like out all day filming, editing, learning how to do it, and learning how to piece all this whole production together. But then we ended up, when you saw that video before, when I was in the living room, we sold a house, we moved there, and that's when we made our first batch of boards in that house. And then we sold 45 or 50 boards in like 2 weeks, and we launched our first website, and the website got completely hacked. And so then everything went wrong, man. Everything went wrong. And then we ended up going straight to Shopify, and then we found this e-commerce platform, and then we did it properly. And thank God my wife is technical in e-com. I wasn't. And then, we made it happen. And then that's when the next issues started, Tom. Like, it was like, shit, we sold these boards. Now we got to make them. Now we've got to get them to the market. Ended up building new relationships overseas in China, and still to this day we're really close with the same family. Our lives changed. We've grown together. We've got a great business with these guys. It's all us, and we never had intentions to like build a company, man. It was about just doing something. All in my head, I was like, okay, sold the house. All I got to do is sell 50 boards, and the profits of that will pay for that money that I put back in. That's all. That's as far as I could think. And then it was like, shit, we need to make more of these, and I had no money, like nothing. And my dad ended up loaning me 20K, and my mum gave me 10. And that's where that's how it started. It's pretty cool story, and never forget my grassroots. They were exciting times, and this is what leads me, when you have some shit days or whatever, and I just keep thinking about, how it started, why we started, and then that sort of helps with certain product designs and the future vision when we do stuff, and it's just crucial. You just can't forget how you started and where you came from. And that's not going to change. We're about the carve, the endless wave, and hence while we're talking about that, our grassroots is like that picture that I'm looking in the background here, loaded times by Evolve. This is our grassroots, man. Like, we started on urethane and street boards, and I am just so excited about, finally, our partnership with a great company and these guys, and we've been friends with Loaded since 2012, really, and we were buying wheels from them. There's a lot of history there. Hey,
so
I'm
that's the thing.
Just going to turn a light on. 1 sec. I can see it's starting to get dark here.
No,
1 sec, mate.
Hey guys, I was going to say, everyone who's in the stream now, please throw in some questions if you want. We've got about 10 or 12 minutes left. We're absolutely flying through the stream at the moment. But that's going quick.
It's flying.
Yeah, honestly, it's just why we're trying. When I normally do like an hour, it's like it just flies by, and it's really, really.
Well, we can do an hour, man. We can extend it.
Okay, so let's see how we go. But one thing I say is, you've always had. I think that's because of, like, the heritage of the longboarders. Like, you always had collabs with other companies as well, and I don't think there's many. There's a lot of collabs with like the mainstream companies as well. Obviously, with the new board coming out, you've obviously worked with Bustin in the past. Obviously with Loaded as well, and obviously the heritage of Loaded it doesn't even need to be said, really. Like, how comes you've always gone for, like, let's say, the juggler as such, with like the established e-skate or traditional skate companies? Because I feel like, I don't know about you, but I feel there's a lot of things to take with stuff that's already been established: the downhill community, the longboard dancing community, the carving community. How can we use those products in e-skate? Is that kind of the similar kind of idea with these collaborations going forward?
100%. Like, I mean, first and foremost was their gear is awesome. These guys are professionals at what they do, and they've been doing it a long time, and you recognize that there's certain things that other companies can do better than you, and this is when you can, like, join forces and go, all right, we'll use a lot of your history and knowledge and apply it to us. And so a lot of the collabs started for us definitely when it was around mostly the wheels. Like, we couldn't make quality urethane. That was just, you're trying to make wheels over in China, they're all just shite. But they're getting much better now. So that's where a lot of our collabs started. Our claim to fame was those drive gears and different versions of them that you could that allowed us to work with Bustin, and they're a great brand too, man. Like, those guys are really cool. And we've been buying wheels from Don and Pablo since 2012, 2013, and it started with their Kegel wheel. And when they brought that wheel out, and as soon as I saw the hub had all the holes, because we used to have a that Bustin male part, and then the ABEC male part. As soon as I saw that hub,
it's like a metal piece. I think, if I remember back in the day, wasn't it? It was just a single metal converter, wasn't it? Because you had the converter for the AT and then the street as well. Yeah.
And then as soon as I saw that hub, we just designed that the male part accordingly, and then that helped us, build our relationship with those guys. So it's important. Collabs are really important, and I guess the commercial mindset, if you want to put the other hat on, sure, you can tap into their customers and their e-commerce platform, and so there's other benefits there as well. But for me, the first and foremost thing is about the ride and the ride quality, and that's the driver to make something really cool that's better. It's just also cred, the street cred. And these guys, these companies that we were talking about here, they all have it. They've been doing it for a long time, and we could not be more stoked. Like it's been a long time coming. Like, excuse me, we've been talking them. We've always floated around the ideas about doing a proper collab, and the timing just was never right, and Loaded, they work closely with Boosted for many years, and just the timing wasn't right. But now it is, where these guys are really great at mechanical, they're crazy scientists, and and this deck is just sick. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Yeah, the deck is so dynamic, I think, as well. I think the deck is a really kind of dynamic shape to it. There's so many points to, where you're planted from what I can see. You know exactly where you're standing from the way the deck's designed.
That's true. There's a few ways you can ride it, and I know that the first time when I rode it, took me a little bit of getting used to. It was like, all right, where's the best place for my back foot and my front foot to lock into? And once I got it, I was like, holy shit, okay, I know what they've done here now. And a lot of people don't realize the science that goes into making a quality deck, and these guys know their shit, and the level of control, that's all I can say is our stoke board's great. But then you ride this deck, next level control. Like, you can slide it, you can just do little sort of shimmies, and then you can bring it back, and you can't really do that on the stoke, but you can on this. It's like it's a performance.
So is this going to be the kind of next stage for the stoke going forward? Is this going to be the definitive shortboard for Evolve going forward?
Well, we'll see. We want to see what. I'm really interested to see what the feedback's going to be once it gets in the hands of some proper riders who know what they're doing. And I don't know that all the guys over in Loaded, all their crew love the board. As you can see, there's Dusty, man. He rides like there's no tomorrow. Everyone says this. Everyone says the same thing. We'll see what happens.
One thing I noticed one thing I noticed about on the footage here is that there's a lot more kind of, obviously sliding has also been in the heritage of Evolve since day one anyway, but being able to be planted low down, like the wheelbase seems a lot further than obviously the other shortboards you've done in the past, so kind of it seems to be more gives you more
It's actually
more technical stuff
it is
going forward.
The deck has been specifically designed for our system. It does have a slightly longer wheelbase than what the Stoke is, so that will also help for stability, but it's still really compact. So, you know, by the time you stand on the board and you lock your positions in, it's really the shoulder width apart sort of scenario for your feet. That allows you for that, you know, that core control, and it's great. It's not like other shortboards where they're so small you can't really sort of fang it. You know, you can't send it, but you can on this. So yeah, we're
super excited as well. The underboard looks really, really nice as well, and I don't think no one ever pays it to, like, when you're standing the board up like that. That's beautiful around there. That is, when you're lifting it up. That really is nice.
This is all loaded, and we had some input. You know, we gave our thoughts, but we wanted this to be a genuine collab, and we wanted to make sure that this is you guys. This is your strength, and we want to be led by you, and so it was an interesting experience going through the design process, and you know, working with Don and his mindset and the way they come up with the deck designs, and we do it slightly differently. So we're kind of the reverse. Normally we just go, let's just make it, and then we think of a name. But they were wanting us to think of a name first before the deck design, and I couldn't quite work that out. I was like, really? But we haven't written it yet. And then we worked through a new process in the way they work, and so this is the first collab, and where's it going to go from here? We want to see the feedback, and man, we'll only grow up from here. That's what I think. That's what's going to happen. This is the first proper partnership with two brands together, and we're only going to make it better.
Well, that's the thing. You think about, I'm going to throw in a question in a second to make sure I answer some questions as well. But I just want to throw as well, obviously with the Heritage Loaded, obviously they've got the shortboard that you're looking at now, but, you know, think about the diversity of what they have, you know, like I said, sky's the limit on what infrastructure they have already and what can they make going forward. I just want to throw in a question here for someone. So what is your kind of personal setup on everyday kind of rider? Like, what would your personal setup be for, like, what would you feel like you gravitate the most towards, like, your setups going forward?
Okay, so what am I riding most at the moment? What's my go-to kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah.
I would say these days I don't ride huge long distances. You know, I think a 20k ride for me is enough. And in terms of speed, I'm more of a carver. I like that 20 to 20k an hour. I feel as though that's the sweet spot to get the best sort of connection with with your board and the road. With faster you go, obviously you're either in a straight line or you got to make wider turns. So keeping that in mind, lately I must admit, what my go-to, I've got a stand in my little area downstairs, and board stand up here like this, and I've got the Carbon Series 2 GTR there, and that's probably the board I've been riding the most, because it's light, and it's quite thin, and it gives me everything I need. Like, it's got more than enough torque, and it'll destroy any hill without being too crazy. And it's just the convenience factor of it too. I like the fact that it's light.
To be honest, I think there's a massive push with, like, obviously everyone's excited about the big numbers of speed and all that jazz, but I think one thing we neglect as a community is talking about livability, like picking the thing up.
Definitely.
Or going to the
100%.
shops, you know, how much of an arse is that to deal with? So I suppose I feel like the best board is the most convenient board for whatever purpose. But I said there's not a single perfect board, you know, that's why we have all these different
and you're
setups.
A classic example of that, man. I think you're a true advocate of what you just said there, because what I see from you is that you're passionate in general, and you've got so many different board genres that you use like often, and you understand it. It's like, sure, this board's rad, I use it for this purpose, but then you're quite happy to jump on this other board that's completely overpowered and huge, and then you still love that, and then you move to this other one, but you don't diss that other board. That's what I mean. You're the type of rider that appreciates everything, and you understand that each board has a different purpose, and it excels in this way, whereas it doesn't tick all the boxes that way, but you have that appreciation. And yeah, I'm the same as well. For our quiver of products, got quite a few that I get to use all the time, and but my go-to, I'm jabbling here a bit, it's definitely the Carbon GTR, purely because it has more than enough range, destroys any hills. It's super stealth and thin, and I love chucking it under my hand. Like, I could just go into the shops. Whereas the GTR, for instance, it's got that larger case underneath. Beautiful board, still has all the same specs, but it's not as easy to carry. And so I guess that's my go-to at the moment.
So you said, obviously, you talked about diversity with different boards, whatever. And I'm going to throw two segments here. I'm going to throw the first one in, and I'm going to push a perspective afterwards as well. Like boards of different purpose. How exciting was that kind of that chapter of with Evolve, with the whole kind of the UK Open and bringing your DIY boards, and then so two-parter. So the fun of using that, and then dealing with repercussions of being like, I want to buy one, and getting hammered for that concept as well. And then people not understanding, like, obviously with the battery configuration, then the footprint, the range and stuff like that is obviously affected, and weight, and then costs and stuff like that. So how do you find, that chapter of Evolve?
Yeah, no, good question, man. And what a great picture that is. So yeah, we've done a few UK Open events, and this, we made it open for a reason. We wanted anyone to come along, and when we made it off-road and we found this track, we knew that all the tramper guys, legends that they are, we knew that they're going to come and destroy us. And so we knew, and we're in their backyard with that type of track. So we needed to have something a little bit more powerful than our standard boards, and that's when we did our own DIY. We designed our battery PCB that allowed for a slave controller at the front, and then we could still integrate it into a very good looking product. And there's Tyler just destroying it. This guy is amazing at riding. So yeah, there was some repercussions for it. Each board had a different battery in it, different battery cells. So they were so torquey, and it had the GTR1 motor controller. So it wasn't FOC. It was a different control algorithm. So it has more punch right at the start. And then when you put these big, massive motors, 4 of them, they weren't very smooth to ride. They just had enormous power off the line. So that was our sort of secret weapon, because we knew that these guys were just going to do these massive jumps. And I remember, I remember a few people in our community anyway, in our close circle, were going, I can't believe you're doing this at this track. These tramper guys are going to destroy you. And we were like,
I remember the hype train coming up too.
We got a couple of tricks up our sleeve, and who cares? It's a risk, and it's all about fun and community, and even if we win or lose, it doesn't matter. We're trying to build a sport here, and so that's what we did. But at least we brought something different, and it went down well. The boards took off like there was no tomorrow, and sure enough, people were, after the event, it was like, wow, can you make me a 4-wheel drive? And to be honest, I didn't really like them. I love using them on the grass. Like, they just excelled on the grass riding. But as soon as you took them on a footpath or road, took the fun out of the ride. It just didn't feel natural. I guess it's like driving a 4-wheel drive car versus like, you know, a supercar 4-wheel drive versus like a rear wheel drive supercar. You know, you can really get it loose, and so it was great. How good was that event, man? We had so much fun there.
Yeah, you need to, you know, come back. There you go. You know, need to come back. Can do it again, or collab with our mountain board guys and do round 2 with our e-bit event and just do that. I think that's
and those guys, Tramper, they've been doing some rad stuff out there, and obviously it's very specific. So I know that if we do an event, we certainly got to make a track that at least there's some advantage for us versus some of the capabilities.
To be honest, I think you've said this before in conversations we've had. I think the best track ever would be a hybrid track, tarmac, dirt, gravel. That would be the best track of all time. And then that would be the best one, I think, going forward.
Could you imagine it like, you know? Yeah, sorry, you go.
No. I just want to bring it back to kind of like grassroots just a little bit, just because I think it's really important. Obviously, you say with, you know, your partner helping you, kind of, you know, that's what they're there to do, to kind of jab you in the direction that you know you need to go going forward. And obviously, saying that, you know, you've obviously been a father, you've, you know, got a boy and a son. How I feel like Evolve's obviously incorporated more women into like the sport, kind of bringing everyone in. Like, so how do you feel like? And obviously, it's very easy, I think, to kind of do the kind of easy kind of sexualization element, but you know, there's always been that kind of bringing the right people on board and actually just like getting more women into sport. So what kind of feel do you feel like going forward, having more, you know, there's always been advertising of women riding as well, which is great because it's obviously sharing that with your partner or you know family member going forward. So what's your incorporation, do you think, going forward, of getting more women into
I think
the sport going forward?
The more women riding e-skate and PEVs in general, it's anyone can use these products, and we all know the feeling it gives you, right? We're all the same. You know, you get out, you get to not stress about the shitty day you had, and you get to focus on a passion. Anyone can have fun on this, and whether you're male or female, like, you know. And then you look at Eliza here, she fucking shreds. And
flies.
She rides better than anyone.
She shreds gracefully, which is I think a unique demographic. And I think that's the thing, because we always have that kind of like, we need to go mental speed thing, but let's bring it back to grassroots and flow with the movements and like that. Sure.
Exactly. This is like longboarding, street riding at its best. And some of the maneuvers that she does, I just can't get over it. She's got this one that she does this reverse slide, and then I still don't even, it's so technical, but anyone can ride e-skate, and the more people riding the sport, the better. That's what I think.
So obviously, I feel like obviously you've been the journey kind of mainstream e-skate since day one. What was your hope? I feel like it's a bit like in the hip hop scene with the breaking. When breaking first came about, breakdancing, it was like early days, people inventing the sport for making heritage. But then the children started getting into it, and then that's a generation where it starts getting insane. Would you feel like the future is with the kind of the next generation, because the infrastructure is already here, and it's going to go who knows where? But you can have people at early days riding and sending stuff that is obscene since day one.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting question. Like, you know, where is e-skate going to be at in 20 years from now? And it's so important that this sport is promoted, and innovation keeps happening, you know, and companies and spend money on trying to make things better. I think a lot relies on that. And the industry has definitely gone through a lot of change the last 3 years. And I feel as though, you know, from 2013 to 2017 were like the golden years of e-skate, where innovation was happening left, right, center. And it was so cool because this innovation from different companies were driving other people. And it was making us especially is like, oh my God, that is so good. We need to up our game. We also need to contribute and stay relevant. And like in any business, you gotta keep moving. You gotta keep moving. And if you just sit back on your heels and just expect things to happen, it doesn't happen. You get left behind, and that's what was happening in those years. And since and the other great thing about all that is because there was marketing behind it, and each company was driving people, the visual on the sport. It was just so good. So many great companies were doing really good things, and if you do some research into like the search volume, on the analytics online, you see it's changed over the last couple of years compared to where it was. And that's because a lot of these companies were spending money on promotion and building. It's changed the last few years, especially since Boosted's dropped out. They were great for Eastgate. They were great for the industry in general. And it's because they were passionate and they were trying to build something, and it helps it lifts the whole sport. Now it's harder because there's not a lot of companies out there right now who are really trying to do this, and fuck man, we need help. Like, we need people like really contributing, and or even like all the smaller guys out there who are doing great stuff. Small companies building great stuff. You gotta get behind the sport. And,
definitely.
And so I feel as though that there's been certainly some change over the last couple of years. I could go into that more, but I'm not.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I think the future it's really important now more than ever to be, trying to build sport in a really positive way. And the more people that can see Eastgate, the better. And things go through cycles, and that's what I've definitely noticed in our industry. You get groups of communities that sort of come in, and those group leaders sort of depart, and then there's a new wave that comes in, and
it's interesting to see who stays around and keeps pushing. For sure.
I
just want to throw in
in cycles.
I just want to throw in a bit of a controversial one here slightly, just because I think it's really important. How do you feel that when you have these brands who do outright copies of your brand? But I feel like what frustrates me is some of the outright copies of your products don't actually need to do that in any way, which I find really frustrating, because they have a unique element to their product and then they basically copy the look of what you're doing. So what is the actual point? So how do you guys find that kind of aspect where it's like you've actually got your product,
what annoys
which has the same
me
demographic, but
with
copy
that
the
is
design.
the Eastgate industry supporting that. That's what's fucked. And so look, it's and this is part of the change that's happened over the last few years, especially since Boosted's gone. At the end of the day, what a lot of what you're seeing out there is versions of Boosted and Evolve, and that's where unfortunately where it's gone, and it's disappointing that hinders innovation. We're trying hard to look at different ways to do things, and even to the smallest little things, like little design choices, like even aesthetic things. It's crazy how quickly all of a sudden, we'll just keep watching these guys, and then we'll take those ideas and do the same thing. And so you look, Tom, that's the hard part, but unfortunately I guess that's design. And when you think about it in the big picture, like a lot of everything that's out there has elements of something else, and things change, and evolve, and that's design. And then trying to even like the legalities of things when you're trying to spend money to like protect things. That's a whole another ball game, and sometimes you think it's like, why fucking bother? But, I feel as though, a lot of people are definitely money driven and aren't purists and don't give a shit about it. But then there's other people that are. I guess that's business as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like I said, it's like, you guys have done this for a long, long time, and it's forever changing and forever evolving, with the scene.
Do you know what I'm waiting to see now? We've just been doing, we've been trying different things the last few months, and we love the idea of custom boards and doing, these different opportunities. And the mainframe was a classic one. That's a pretty unique design with the clear cases.
Well, Evolve Labs, isn't it?
Yeah,
Madman at Evolve Labs.
That was you, mate. That was.
Yeah.
You're gonna trademark that one.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I have my little bits here and there where I throw in stuff. So, yeah.
No, you've got some great ideas, man. And but yeah, the clear case is something that we've had a vision for ages, and we've started doing some of these things. It's kind of it's like real retro 80s, 90s, and you see what like the old Game Boy days, and you can see the inside of the electronics. And
there you go. You need to make an 8-bit board. There you go. 8-bit board.
Yeah,
make it a bit retro. That'd be sick.
And that was one of the good things about the Hadean carbon design. That drop through deck, and you can put different materials on it, and so we always wanted to do a clear case, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens now. Like over the next 6 months, you'll probably see a few of these pop up elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like I said, we're using infrastructure. I said to you, I think we had this in the meeting in the UK. We're slightly over, so we'll just wrap up quite quickly in a second. But anyone's got anything to say, please put it in now, because we're going to finish very, very quickly. But I said using different infrastructures with like the gaming PC community, like exposing and RGB and making it, let's go bananas. You know what I mean? Let's see what we can come up with. You know what I mean? I think it's a fun thing. Do you feel like you've always had that kind of custom mentality? Because I feel like that's one of overseer looking in. I think that's the biggest customer kind of, how do you keep people coming back by giving them the tools to be like, how do I kind of keep them coming back for more? How can you get a product and then be like, well, how do you now make it your product? So I think that's one of the biggest things from Evolve looking at.
Yeah, that we try hard at that, but that's every business challenge, right? Is trying to, how do you get a return customer? Once you get them into the brand, how do you keep them? Every business has this challenge, and we've been, certainly over the years since we started Evolve, we've had different versions of product, and that is also a way to help keep people engaged, and you want something a bit better, it has a different spec to it. One thing we've certainly noticed, and you would see it as well, whenever you go on any sort of group ride and in the community, there's so much personality, and there's no board that's different. Like, who wants to have, same board as your best mate, looking exactly the same? You always want to put your own sort of stamp on it, and our customers have so many great ideas, and we see it all the time in grip tapes, different customization of colored trucks, and then this was one of our first hydro dip boards. The problem with this kind of work, it's so hard to do, and then and it's quite expensive, but then trying to like offer it to a larger audience,
numbers.
And then not everyone has the same taste. Not everyone likes the same stuff, different colors, and so it's a challenge. And then trying to make it available, and we've definitely been on the mindset of like, we've definitely had a bit of a machine gun approach here, where we're seeing kind of what works and then what sticks and what people like, and then we can try to hone in on this is more positive than this, and then we can sort of more have a canon approach and start working on designs like that.
I think what it does is it inspires people to kind of take ownership and get more involved with their product. So it's a bit like you say with the Game Boy effect. We've got a standard grey, whatever, but then they bring out this atomic purple and be like, well, now maybe I want mine to look like this, and then they kind of, have it like little pieces and stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to be aware of our time. We've got just go for the last kind of like closing statements for you, Jeff. So I appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to highlight?
It's been fun.
Yeah, but it's easy to get carried away, isn't it? Just to kind of keep going,
man. I could talk to you for ages.
It's easy, yeah. It's just. I think what it is, it's just about talking about kind of where things are, where we're going. You know what I mean? And it's indirect kind of relationships over a long period of time where things have evolved over the time and changed, and remembering what it's like to kind of ride for 7 miles and then sit there for 2 hours and then ride 7 miles. Things are so different nowadays. It's ridiculous. So I just want to ask, is there anything particularly you want to highlight, or talk about just from the last kind of closing statements from yourself, Jeff?
Anything that I want to talk about? No, like I just want to, I just want to bring some cool shit out, but I guess I don't want to have that big dick approach kind of thing. And what I mean by that is, I want to make sure that we're focusing on ride quality, different materials, and I want that design ethos of the endless wave to keep driving some of our decision making, and I guess with part of that is it's got to be about fun, man. And at the end of the day,
take out the bullshit and go out for a ride. I've said this so many times. Stop comparing deck sizes, and then just go out for a ride.
It's got to be about fun, and I want to make sure that when we make decisions as a business, that recreation part of it is the driver. And if it's fun, and that's crucial. So yeah, we've got a few tricks up our sleeve, man.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. You've got about 10 million eyes always watching to see like what have they got what's going to happen next at all times. And I'm one of them. So
I hope with this,
always checking out what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks, man. I hope with this loaded board, people recognise some history there. Because this has been a long relationship we've had with the guys. We're super friends with them. We've been buying product from them for a long time, and we've talked about this. And right in the middle of the launch, there's a doco coming out. I think it's tomorrow, maybe the next day. But
please tell me it's a bit making of. That's what I want to say. Making of.
It's cool, man. It's just there's some cool shit about it, and I'm really looking forward to like growing that and being back to the roots of more like longboarding and skate, and we're not using urethane wheels. We're focusing on. We're not using the pneumatic wheels. We're focusing on the urethane and where it all started, and because generally most people now are using the big wheels, and we're going the other direction. We want to focus on the ride. So yeah, man. That's
watch your space as always.
Did you want to watch this space? And Christmas is coming up. This year is flying by. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The business environment at the moment. The world where the industry's at. And going through the last 3 years, like dealing with COVID and now post-COVID, it's been a fucking interesting ride, and it's been hard. That's what I can say. Nothing is easy. Oh, one other thing, we've got a rad event happening on the 9th in Oceanside in USA, in California.
Cool.
And so it's at our location. It's like a launch party slash demo event with the guys at Loaded. So the Loaded's going to be there.
Oh, cool.
We're gonna be there. I can't wait. We're setting up a little track right next to our shop because where our shop is, there's a car yard, and the car yard's pretty empty. And so we're going to set up this cool fucking track. We want, hopefully some of the local crew from San Diego come, and LA, and there's going to be a food truck there.
I'm going to throw an idea out there, actually. With the heritage of Loaded, with the longboard dancing, I'm going to throw an idea competition. Should try and do a longboard e-board flat thing as well, and do a trick session as well, so you can bust out stuff, because use that heritage. As in,
we should bring out a new product that's specifically designed.
No. I'm not the homework, not adding a project, but for your event, obviously the Loaded has heritage of longboard dance, stuff like that. And do a trick session, but do another one. Definitely. Like, what can people do on an e-board?
Great. Yeah, and we are. Like, these guys are coming. They're going to have their setup there. We want to promote what they do, their heritage, and they're going to they'll bring some riders. And we got to think of, it's going to be like a 3-hour event, and demos, there's food truck, and we've got this track. So there'll be, those guys, they got to show some of their shit, what they do.
But they're working.
It's going to be fun.
Well.
So that's the next thing. And I'm looking forward to going and seeing our team. Haven't seen them for a few months.
Yeah, Jelly. I need to do more. I've gone back from my events in Switzerland and stuff like that. It was good fun. So yeah, I need to try and get more international stuff.
Man, I saw some of that footage. That looked epic. What a great spot, and that would have been fun riding their new board like that.
Oh man, yeah. So it was really good opportunity, but I got more stuff like that coming. I've got Mads content, but like yourself, the backlog of massive amount of responsibilities and work and everything else to do as well. So it is coming. Just need to get the grind on. But thank you. Like are you going to
go to Eastgate Con? Are you going to go to that Eastgate Con event again next year?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Like I'll just throw it. It's like this is my wall. This is my Eastgate Con tribute act, and then. Up here, I've got my grassroots decks as well. But that's a side hustle, isn't it? Hey, Eastgate Con big things.
I got that card, by the way. Matt.
Oh, cool, sweet.
And he came back on Monday. He had 5 weeks off, and he goes, "Hey, I got a little present for you." And that's cool. That card, that business. There's
card. Only one of them. That's what I was like. Do you know what? I literally was digging up, getting my cards and stuff, and I was like, I've got to get it to the people with it. Anyway, we're just talking about our own shenanigans, so I'm going to
cool. Wrap it up. This is some of the cool stuff, man. But thanks for thinking of us and passing that on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always good, man. Like I say, thank you so much for being on the live. Everyone who's joined, hope a bit more informative, kind of get more. The reality of what it's like to be involved in this, besides just being an idea of a logo and a brand, of the grind that comes behind it. You know what I mean? And then the highs and lows, the work, the time. This is what all goes behind making 4 wheels that roll with a motor attached to it. So it's all good times. But anyway, thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you so much, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Tom. No worries, mate.
Wrap it up. See you later, guys.
Thanks for having me, mate. I appreciate the time.